Simmons and Jeffrey Steele. Recently, we've seen in Madison, Wisconsin, the gunning down and murder of another young African American / black man. And Omar, I want to go to you first today. I see you have some information there, as usual. And you are familiar with the recent event in Madison, Wisconsin. Unarmed young man, black man, gunned down by a white police officer. And we've seen, though we know work has continued in Ferguson in the interest of African Americans, but we've seen on the TV, we have a new eruption and the wounding of 2 police officers. Now, is this an attempt by white supremacy, a continuation, and is this the culmination that we're looking at of white supremacy? And let me say this before we go. We promised the audience, Omar, that we would continue on white supremacy. 4 or 5 series maybe. So a promise made, a promise kept. We are continuing to discuss white supremacy. Omar.
You know, white supremacy is not just in America. It's around the world. And what they're doing to us here is what they're doing to black people and people of color everywhere you find the white man's footprint. Nothing's going to change until you take retribution against those who are perpetrating this kind of slaughter upon the people. As long as he can do it and get away with it and keep you in the dark about what he's doing, then he's going to continue to stay in power. He's going to continue to brutalize and trivialize what he's done to you. It's just, it's just all in a day's work. We must do something about what's happening. Mr. Robinson should never have been murdered, never. And it was truly a murder. But there are so many others like that, not just this year and last year, but there's a history of it, all the way back to the time they brought us over here. So nothing's changed. We got to change.
Okay. Talut, he's talking about doing something about African American situation. And we see in Ferguson, I have a piece here that says, well, we saw some step down, cause and effect. Police officers, hate email, and now they are calling for the mayor himself to step down. Do you see that as an act of retribution, at least in part? We're talking about the question.
No.
Okay.
No. That isn't nearly enough.
Okay.
That's like a drop of water in the ocean.
Okay.
Okay, for have some guy to resign because he's this or that, and another guy step aside because of this, and a child's life is taken. Come on. We have to demand more. Okay? And then you have a situation where the Justice Department is reporting X amount of black men, women, and boys killed by killer cops around the United States, and now they are saying, oh, well, that number isn't correct. It's more like double that number. Okay? So there's a massive cover-up going on in the United States about the killing or execution of young men and women and really adults. Okay? So we have to look at the big picture of these things. Okay? If we are satisfied, if we can become satisfied because somebody resigned, then that's a poor example of people. If we handle our business as the Bible, the Quran, and other religious books around the world say do it, we wouldn't have a problem.
Okay.
But see, we got a problem because there are so many of our people who are looking for the easy way out.
Okay.
And the easiest, not the easy, the easiest way out.
Okay. Okay. I want to go right back to you, Omar. talking about white supremacy, and we've talked about it going back to the 1700s. We've talked about the night patrols, the paddy rollers, who have emerged. Are these the same people who have evolved or emerged into killer cops that Talut is talking about today? Is this the same element that we're talking about today?
You know, it's the exact same people,
all right.
with a different name.
Right.
But you know, the plan is still the same. It's no difference. We have got to do something about it. We talk about it. We got to do something about it.
Okay.
And if we don't come together and unite and organize and mobilize the people, we're going to continue to get the same thing we didn't get.
Okay.
And people are afraid to organize and mobilize because they're afraid of what white people may say. The hell with what they say.
Okay.
It's what's going to happen to our children.
Yes.
Everything is about our children. If we don't do something now, our children don't have a future. I shouldn't have to have a conversation with my son about what happens if a policeman stops you. White people don't do that. They expect to be treated with civility. I've got to expect my son to be treated savagely. I shouldn't have that conversation with my son.
The previous presenter was talking about our children in that same regard. So, when you say organize and mobilize the people, you're talking about what? Come on, expand a little bit.
Let's do what the Jews do.
All right.
You don't find their children getting slaughtered in the street and the police say, I thought he had a gun.
Okay.
You don't see that. You don't see them going into a Jewish community and violating the order of their community. You don't see that. Because they have organizations and they have power. And if you come against them, they will make sure you understand you stepped out of place. They'll have you not just fired and jailed, they'll have you criminalized and demonized, and then you won't ever see the light of day. But we don't do that. We want to excuse and forgive everybody. I ain't excusing nobody. If
all
they
right.
come after my son, nobody.
Okay. Now let me ask you this then. You said something, and then I want to go right back to you, Talut. You said something about the plan. The plan coming from white supremacists. What are you saying the plan is? What is the plan? Coming from white supremacists, relative to what we're talking about, the gunning down and killing of our young men.
You know, when they brought us over here in slavery, that was one of the few times in history that they had 100% employment. Because every slave had to work. And now they've gone to a technological system where they really don't need us anymore. And we're still here. And they feel like they're giving us benefits that we don't deserve. They call it what the welfare queens. Although corporate America gets much more welfare than black America. And the welfare we claim that they claim they give us is unpaid reparations. But they don't need us anymore. I looked at a study a few months ago about the scientists in Germany trying to make something called a humanzee, a cross between a chimpanzee and a human. They can do the work that we do now, the menial labor, the McDonald's, the janitorial stuff, and then they don't have to pay them anything because they're actually not human. They're part human and part animal. And that way they can get rid of us altogether. They feel like they need to depopulate the earth and get rid of us completely.
Okay. Talut, you want to say something, but let me put another question with your comment. They didn't have, we are talking about the slaveholders, didn't have an end game, right? They didn't have an end game. So now, is it safe to put forth a theory that agrees with Omar by saying that now we have to get rid of black people? We're talking about the white supremacists, and one way to get rid of them is to kill the young black men. And along with your comment, see if you can speak to that question.
Sure. We've been gotten rid of.
Okay.
We're not a part of this society.
Okay.
Prove it. Anybody, can anybody prove that we, ex-slave ascendants, are a part of the American society? No one can prove that. Nobody. Why? Because we're not a part of the economic infrastructure of the society. It's not our educational system that's being taught. We're not going to work at our plants and industry. We don't learn our religion. We don't fight our wars. So can anybody prove to me that we haven't been gotten rid of.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
done with. Now,
go ahead.
the
other question.
but that is a very unique position to be in. A very powerful position to be in.
Okay. Is it?
Why?
Okay.
Because we can build whatever we want to build.
So do I hear you saying unique as in powerful and also precarious?
It's precarious, true enough, but
So
nevertheless,
break it down.
yeah, nevertheless, we can become a people in America. As Brother Baruti is saying, we have to take responsibility. We take responsibility by assuring that our children have a future. We're going to have to cause police officers to cease and desist. We're going to have to, again, cause them to do that.
Okay.
They're not going to willingly stop. This is not a phenomenon that you can just say, okay, all police officers around the United States stop. Don't shoot and kill nobody black. That's not part of what's actually happening. There's a mentality out there. Okay? Some officers have it, some don't. Okay, so you can't wish away policemen shooting down innocent black people with their hands up and naked and all kinds of stuff, just shooting them because they think they ought to die. You know, that's not something that you can legislate out of existence. We have to take the responsibility and execute our will and cause them to cease and desist.
Okay. Omar, Talut said something about the earlier question about the situation at Ferguson. Do you see or do you say that action that was taken in Ferguson, is that something that is acceptable as a step in the right direction going forward? In other words, people losing their jobs and pressure being put on the... In other words, is the political action, can it be a part of what we are talking about as in terms of cease and desist and solution to the problem, organizing, mobilizing, galvanizing people? Go ahead.
You know, I look at the country of Japan with 127 million people. In the year 2012, they only had 11 murders in the whole country. The police officers pick up their guns when they get to work. And then when they leave work, they leave the guns at work. And until 1948, they didn't even go out the door with a gun to go on duty. Because guns were not an integral part of their society. America is a society that has a love affair with guns and with drugs. And they have a love affair with killing. Because every answer that they can think of to a problem, the answer is to kill it. Whatever it is.
So when you say that, does bloodshed, the love affair with bloodshed and killing, everything from animals to human beings, fit in that equation as well?
They go to Africa on safari just to kill an animal who has done nothing to them. Nothing. Just to hang his head on the wall. To say, look what I did.
I'm happy. That's not really funny. That's criminal. That's crazy. Yes. Go ahead.
Some of those animals now are near extinction. And some are extinct.
Yeah.
But that's his love affair with killing, with blood. But that's his history.
Okay.
I look at Madison, Wisconsin, where that child was killed. Look at the disparity. The black folk are 6% of the population. 6%. But they make up over 50% of those incarcerated. They have an 8-to-1 chance of getting stopped by a police officer, although they are not guilty of anything. But they are demonized and criminalized in the mind of these white police officers. And everywhere they go, it's the same thing. It's not just in Madison or Ferguson or Memphis. It's all over the planet Earth.
Okay.
And until we look at that and tie those pieces together, we're going to continue to be victimized.
Okay, look at it and tie them together. I'm going to go back to you, Talut. I have a book here. It's The New Racism by Eduardo Bonilla Silva. And he agrees with you. You raised the question, can anyone prove that African Americans are a part of this system of society? He points out emphatically, no. And he shows how in which it is done, and he calls it the new racism. And we've heard about the new Jim Crow, and he outlines it, and he points it out step by step, and saying that, something you said this morning, that white people don't vote for black people. And so they continue to be separate in their own society. So he proves what you said. So what do you say would be a striking, effective point to strike for African Americans?
Well, we have to unite.
All right?
But uniting is not easy. It's not a simple process at all. Sometimes it takes thousands of years for a nation to unite. It has taken however many years here in America for the Americans to unite, and they're not fully united. They're just as divided as you can be. But our unique situation will cause us to unite rather easily and rather quickly.
Okay.
But we don't have anything to unite around. There's nothing for us to gather around and force us into a unit. We don't, number one, we don't have a common enemy. You can only have a nation if you have a common enemy. See, every time our leaders, our true leaders, God-given leaders, stood up to unite us around the enemy, the house Negro come out, beat us back, beat us all the way back, reversing the enemy to become a friend. So we can't ever get ourselves together to unite. Because again, number one, we don't have a common enemy. We don't have a common interest. The only interest that we have that might be common is one that's on the table right now: police killing black kids, innocent. That's a common interest. But is that a unified interest that's going to bring us together as a people? No. No. As soon as we swallow the effect of our kids and people being shot down, we go right on back to where we were before.
Okay, so we're back at what you've always said, Omar. It's mental. Now, you say something about what Talut just said in terms of the Negro, what the Negro does. So what must be done about the Negro and this element that comes as a buffer between the progressive forces of African Americans that he just spoke of? Do you see that? And what must be done about it?
You know, I'm glad you used the term Negro, because the word Negro comes from the Latin word necro, which means dead.
Mm-hmm.
And black folk are mentally and spiritually dead.
Okay.
On the plantation, when a Negro got out of place and became black, and white folks wanted to make an example of him, they would bring all the Negroes together, and they would allow them to see this black man get beat the hell out of, and sometimes slaughtered and tortured. Mm-hmm. They would do that to put fear in the rest of us. Mm-hmm. Look at the history in America. Marcus Garvey had nearly 2 million followers, and they took Marcus Garvey to federal court, jailed him in Atlanta on some trumped-up charges, and then they deported him, and his movement broke up. Mm-hmm. Malcolm X was rising, and he realized that America has not just a problem with black folk, they have a human rights problem. Mm-hmm. And so when Malcolm got too much into the media, people started galvanizing around him, they assassinated him. Dr. King, right here in Memphis, was assassinated because he never just dealing with poor people, dealing with national issues. Mm-hmm. They couldn't afford to do that. Mm-hmm. Anytime a colored man becomes a black man, America got a problem with it, and their problem is always the same: killing.
Okay. Quite eloquent. Is this Negro who became a black man, is that the picture of the famous picture that we see with the black man with over, I don't know, looks like 1 million whip stripes on his back? We've seen that picture. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. He's a prime example of what I'm talking about. Okay. Jesse Jackson made a comment, I guess 20 years ago, maybe longer than that, calling what Jews call themselves Hamitown.
Hamitown. Hammy what?
Hamitown.
Hamitown, okay. Hamitown, right.
They call themselves that.
Okay.
And then they crucified Jesse Jackson, and he ain't been a powerful speaker since.
Okay.
Minister Farrakhan has been demonized for his stand for the cause of black people. And now you got black people running from him because, you know, he's an anti-Semite. Hell, you don't know what an anti-Semite is. Those Jews that are over there are not even Semites themselves. But you don't know that because you don't really read. You look at what they tell you, and you become demonized by what they tell you, and you become comatose by what they tell you.
Okay. Mental. Talut, I want to add something to this Negro syndrome. This is a serious issue, from what I can gather. That a Negro is one who will never ever gain rightful ownership, including his mind. And that he's the one who was programmed and trained to be untrustworthy. He was the one who always ran and told Massa that the black people are getting ready to make progress. What do you have to say? Here's what it sounds like to me in terms of talking about solution and what must be done. We were talking this morning, you and I. It's mental. It sounds like we have to continue to do what we're doing. Continue to point out, educate, and highlight, motivate, inspire, and energize the people to rise up and say, I'm going to change some things about who I am, about my behavior and my thought pattern. I'm going to stop drinking so many 40 ounces. I'm going to stop smoking crack. But look, go ahead, Talut. You know, I get a little excited.
It's mental. It's mental to the standpoint that we are all of a psychological makeup.
Affected by it.
Yeah. We are psychological. We are spirit. We are. We're not physical. We ride our bodies like a horseman rides his steed. You understand?
Yes.
We controlling his body, but we are spirit. We are spiritual and mental. Okay? So the problem with us as the minority, the weak and the ones that gets whipped the most, we believe in the imaginary things of life. We walk out of our house in an imaginary world. We believe in the imaginary white man. We don't know the white man. We know that imaginary one. Okay? We like I said many times, most black people have never visited a white person's home or Caucasian's home. We don't know how those people live. We imagine it. When we turn around, we imagine how they would perceive us. They don't tell us what we should look like or how we should dress or how our hairstyle should be. They don't tell us whether we should wear hair on our face or not. They don't tell us any of that. We imagine for them what they want. See, that's a twisted insanity.
Okay, it sounds like I hear you saying then, in general, African Americans, they proceed to try to act accordingly.
Emulate.
Yeah. And
Assimilate.
therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem of insanity. Go ahead.
And not based on facts. We don't try to assimilate or emulate on facts.
Yes.
We imagining it. We said, oh, white people like our hair to be straight and curved. They like that. They never said they like that. Okay? We just take for granted and we assume and think that our presentation to them is acceptable to them. We're thinking for them. We think for these people.
Go ahead.
We are not seeking anything. We are just living on this earth without any direction from another people, but we pretend and imagine that we are doing what they want us to do.
Okay.
We don't care about the return. We're not doing this because Caucasians are going to give us something. We're doing it because we're crazy.
Crazy, he said crazy. Omar, he said crazy. Now,
insane.
Imagination is good, but it has its limits. So, should we proceed to not tell African Americans who they are and what they should be, but to get them to think about how to examine who they are and their role in society? Is that the way in which we should proceed? In other words, to perceive reality. And yes, those Negroes sometimes jump out there seeking the approval of white people sometimes, the Negro. Omar, let's talk more about getting African Americans to understand who they are. And there, Talut said something about, he talked about something paradoxical, like a contradiction. Power, he said power and precarious situation, but at the same time opportunity. So how does knowing who we are, knowing our history, knowing our psyche, help us out? And look, we are down to, I didn't mean to talk so much, we're down to 4 minutes.
You know, when you look at black people in America and around the world, but especially in America and in Africa, the people in Africa will not rise up until the black man in America rises up. He must rise because the Africans in Africa are looking to the black man to lead the way. Right now, we live and we are born into a world of illusion. And our biggest illusion is that the white man is all powerful, that he is God, and that we are nothing. And even reality TV, which is not reality at all, keeps us in that world of illusions. They have a book at the University of Memphis called Becoming an African American.
Okay.
And I got a chance to go and talk to some of the students, and I told them, you will never become an African American. Never. Because as long as they treat you differently and look at you differently, then they hold the keys to you becoming that, because that's something that benefits them. If you were going to be why don't you be an American, not African American? Mm-hmm. But you can't be that because they got to have certain voting rights to give you rights the same that white folks have. They got to change the criminal justice system, the political system. They got to change the job discriminatory avenues that they take people down and keep them out of certain jobs. They got to do all this because you are black. Right. And if you were really just an American, then you wouldn't have to worry about any of that. No special laws. You got a voting right because you live here. You're born here. You got the right to vote here. You don't need anything special. But because you are treated different, because they're going to keep treating you differently. Become a black man.
We're talking about the white supremacists.
Yes. Become black. Black American. So because you can hook up with all black people around the earth. Because we got the same common enemy, we got the same common cause.
You know, I'm thinking more and more about that. It sounds like a good strategy. That's something we're going to talk about more going forward. But Talut, this is a cliche that's been around for a while. That the black man must rise up and take control and independence of himself and his people, his wife, his children, household, and etc. And other groups around the world are waiting on the black man to rise up. Is that true? And how do we prove that's true? And I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. How do we pull together evidence to that effect, and then how do we proceed from there? Go ahead.
Well, actually, we are the chosen people of God.
All right.
No question about it. There hasn't been another people on the planet Earth who has succumbed to the type of inhumane conditions as black people in America have. Never, ever, 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 never. Okay? So we are chosen, and we do have a mission. We have a mission in this world. And the mission is that we have the responsibility to destroy white supremacy. Now, destroying white supremacy changes the entire world. The whole idea of what a world is. Everything changes, right? The whole concept of the universe turns upside down. Everything. Okay? The oceans rise, the locusts come, you know, all of those biblical things that happen comes about when the black man and woman decide that they're going to do God's will and destroy white supremacy. Now, not only are we going to be helping the world in the destruction of white supremacy, but we're going to be helping the Caucasian people.
Okay.
They carry a tremendous burden on their minds, thinking in their minds that they're better than everybody else on the planet.
Right, and they say, at least I'm white, I'm poor as hell, but at least I'm white. And I told you last week, they're on TV, up to their eyeballs in debt.
Yes.
I mean, under tremendous amount of stress, and don't mean to cut you off, but we've heard Ida B. Wells, Marcus Garvey, and host of, including Mr. Farrakhan, Actually, we're calling for the freedom and independence and the joy and happiness of all people, around the world. Go ahead and finish your statement.
Well, the last point that I would make on this is that the world needs us, and the world looks towards us to bring about the changes. Look how they rallied around the first black president of the United States. The whole world. Even though there's some few African American, black Americans in this country who said, "Oh, he's no good. We can't trust him. He's like the rest of them, and he didn't win. They put him in power." They'll say everything and do everything to discredit anything that has to do with the elevation of the black mind, the black man, the black mind. So they're our enemies too, and we got to find these people. We got to identify them and charge them as being our enemy, and we have to rally around it.
Okay, we're really up against the clock now, but Omar, I have a double question for the two of you. The chosen people, and we've heard the Jews say they are God's chosen people. Brother Talut El-Amin saying that the black American, as we are talking today, are the chosen people. Another thing that he said that the world needs African Americans, black Americans, to rise up and be productive. Speak to those two questions for me. Well, for the audience, I'm sorry.
Let's do the first one.
Yes.
If you look at the Bible, and it talks about the Jews that built the pyramids and they were in bondage, to the Egyptians. There was an interview being conducted by Walter Cronkite, where he had Menachem Begin from Israel, and he had Sadat, Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, at the foot of the pyramid, and they were talking about the peace accord they had signed at Camp David. And Mr. Cronkite said, "Isn't it amazing that we are right here at the foot of the pyramid, Mr. Begin, where your people were enslaved to Mr. Sadat's people?" And Mr. Sadat said, "That's not true."
Okay.
He said, "That never happened. We have the oldest recorded history on record, and there's no history of that." And Mr. Begin didn't come back with any kind of rebuttal.
Okay.
And that's because if you read the history of the Jews that occupy Israel, they adopted Judaism as a religion. They never were Jews, ever, before they adopted the religion. The original Jews are black folk, jet black, and they are over here in this country as well as in Africa.
Okay.
So those Jews are imposters.
Okay.
Always have been, always will be.
All right. Now, let's do this. We always working against the clock until we get our consolidated. There are several topics that I hear coming out of today's discussion. And we did the panel discussion on Black People Curse. I think we're going to have to do a discussion along the lines of who's God's chosen people going forward. Sometime over in the summer. So, in other words, you gave us something last week, 2 weeks ago, Omar, that says that that white supremacy is built on a bale of lies in terms of how white people got their money. So are we saying that part of what we have to do is challenge the competition, speak truth to all of the contradiction and all of the lies, and this would be part and parcel of the solution going forward? I mean, is that something that can be as powerful as a machine gun? Talut.
Well, the truth will make you free. Just that simple.
Yep.
And see, the thing is this. One of the reasons the white supremacists oppress black people so much around the world is because when the truth comes out about them, they have to burn all their books voluntarily. They have to just gather all the books that they've written and burn them. All of them. Okay? Because all of their books are infactual. All of them are lies. None of them are natural. Not one. Why? Because you can put down the whole truth on the table. You can put one lie in the midst of it. Is it still the truth? No. It's not the truth. That's what Satan does. Satan takes the truth. The truth could be a black wall or a white wall. Satan put one dot of black or white in the far upper corner where you can't see it and call it the truth. But once you once you spot the dot, it's not the truth anymore.
Okay.
And so that's why the Caucasian white supremacists would have to voluntarily destroy all of their books and all of their knowledge, because there's a dot of lies in everything.
Okay. Omar, here I found the piece. This is what it says. It says that the foundation of American white supremacy sits tenuously on a rickety base of lies and deceptions about how whites gained their wealth and status. A century and a half after slavery, the median wealth of white families is $100,000. For black families, it's $5,000. The belief that whites achieved this 20-to-1 wealth advantage by hard work is an absurd and historical fantasy. And some time ago, Mr. Jimmy Johnson was sharing with us the difference between hard work and hardly working, and how you achieve your wealth. Tell us something profound, Omar.
You know, since we've gotten here, white people, the reason they came to this country, many of them, was because they got free land and free labor. They gave them land. They didn't have to go buy acres of land. And they gave them us to work the land, because they couldn't make any money without some labor, and they couldn't afford to pay for the labor.
And the natives weren't having.
No, this was their land. They were fighting to the end for their land, and they were slaughtered in the process.
Yes, they were.
Over 500 Indian tribes. Now they're all on reservations.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that's what America has done. And this land is drenched with the blood of Native Americans and Africans. Mm-hmm. They were brought over here in chains. That's how they got it. Wall Street was built by slaves. Wall Street. The whole economy was built on the slave labor. The cotton, when cotton was king, it was because black folk were picking the cotton, and white folks were benefiting from it. We were being slaughtered if we didn't pick enough cotton. Mm-hmm. But nothing's changed.
Okay. So we're back around again to the question of African American. For the sake of discussion, I'm going to go with Black American. Need to be productive, because what you just said, white supremacists don't need African Americans any longer. The problem they made was they didn't have an end game, so their quest now is to get rid of African Americans, starting with the young black man. Some have said that because the young black man with all of that melanin and all of that strength and vitality and all that can continue to make babies after babies after babies, and are they afraid that it will never be able to get rid of the black man?
There's no such thing. There's no concept of that.
Of what?
If every black man in America, a black woman, a child is murdered in America, the earth itself will produce one.
Okay.
It'll come. There's nowhere for us to go. It's just it.
So you're saying that this is an impossible task, quest for the white supremacists?
Right. Because they're
so therein lies the precarious situation for them.
Well, yes, because they are extremely ignorant people. And we're learning this every day as we look at the news, how they handle the politics. They are some extremely ignorant, backwards, antiquated, ancient thinking people. The only thing they can operate on is hate. That's all. There's nothing else, just hate. I hate you. You said, well, why? Oh, you're black. I gotta hate you. What else do I have to do? And that's the thing. They just hate. But when it comes to intellect, they are the most ignorant people on the planet Earth. Especially that southern Caucasian guy. He's the most ignorant. Why is he the most ignorant? Because after 200 years, he cannot build an economy in the South. Look at the South's economy. It's the poorest economy in the country. In the mid-southern states, where this racist, white supremacists rule and dominate. The poorest people in the United States live right among these states. Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and these states. Okay? What does that point to us? It points to us that these people are extremely ignorant, and we are too. We're just as ignorant as they are. Why? because they are incapable of building a successful economy because of hate, and we are successful as following them. You know, we're just as ignorant as they are.
Okay, so you say, so Omar, is a part of this equation for African Americans, in lieu of view of all that we've said for African Americans, education? When I say education, think about what kind of education I'm talking about. Go ahead. Your perspective on a part of the solution being, because we've talked about politics, education, murder, white supremacy, and we've talked about competition as a reality coming out of one's imagination. Is that a part of the solution in the equation? Is the best way I can put the question.
You know, when you speak of education, children in America are not educated. They're actually trained to fit into corporate America's work scheme.
Mm-hmm.
When they get a true education, the first thing they're going to learn is who they are, where they came from. That's going to be the foundation of the education, like it is in the Jewish households. Who are you as a Jew? And where are you and what's your debt? We don't get that kind of education.
Okay, so we are really up against the clock now. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to call Saran because that's a wrap. That's a wrap. So we'll come back next week and continue. We will be offering some ideas and suggestions as to how we are to educate ourselves going forward. All right? Self-knowledge.
Yes.
Know thyself.
Yes. First.
And free thyself. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Love power.
And